look, just for starters, okay? When you are making a film about a girl who clearly lives in poverty and is trying to claw her way out of it, and have a better life for herself and her younger sibling, you can't have someone who looks like Nicola Peltz. Nicola Peltz looks wealthy because she is wealthy. She has perfect teeth. She has perfect skin. She has perfectly sculpted features from plastic surgery. She has like no imperfections on her face. And you compare her and like then her makeup to like it's very much so giving poverty porn, poor fantasy. You compare that to like the Florida Project, okay? You've got the Florida Project where the character, the mom looks like this. Looks more like someone who, that absolutely looks like someone who would be in a situation like this. Like, it's super believable. Look at her. Look at her. As opposed to like the perfect ethereal looking Nicola Peltz. So just to start off by saying that, I'm sorry, but you watch Nicola Peltz in a movie like this and you just go, wow, that girl should probably just go be a supermodel. I know she's the director. I understand. Apparently she had been partnered up with Bria, the actress from the Florida Project, and then they parted ways, and I'm not sure why they parted ways. I'm very interested to know what went down there. All right, so anyway, that's just what I wanted to say at first. She looks like a girl who's attended private school. Yeah, and like her, I don't know. I mean, we're going to get into talking about whether or not someone like Nicola, who grew up and has grown up her entire life in a world that is so opposite of the world of a character like Lola, can she write and direct and star in a project of someone whose life she truly has never even come close to and will never come close to? And that's a question. And I'm not of the belief that artists have to have lived the life of characters that they write about. Of course not, because then that means that a lot of people would be very limited. I really enjoyed Perfect Days, the work of Wim Wenders. He's not Japanese. He hasn't grown up in Japan, but there were things about that character and that world that I know the director Wim Wenders understands. He doesn't know that exact life, for starters, because he's not Japanese, but he is equipped to tell a story of a character like that in that setting. And for Nicola, the problem is, and also that she wrote this at 23, is that she very clearly, from the trailer of this film and everything I've read about it, is basing her characters and her setting and her story off of what she has seen in other movies, what she has maybe read about. And she just is not equipped to tell a story like this without leaning so heavily into stereotypes, into tropes, into cliches, and ultimately is not going to be able to build this world and build these characters that people will be able to get lost in, because they will always see her and be like, oh, that girl's a billionaire. It's really hard to separate that. She could have told a story about the corruptness of growing up as a billionaire, but it's more like to get traction doing this. Yeah, so let me just like read you. Let me start off by reading you an interview with her, actually, where she talks about this. Lola's a coming-of-age story that follows Lola James, an impoverished young woman working at a strip club and convenience store, trying to save enough money to get her brother out of their toxic home. And the other thing, too, is, have I grown up as an impoverished young woman working, you know, who was living in poverty like this? No. But I also didn't grow up as a billionaire. So I understand this world more than somebody like Nicola Peltz. And the fact that Nicola wrote this at 23 before she was able to really even develop as an artist herself. Like a 23-year-old girl who writes a story of something that you kind of, it's almost like a fantasy. It's like, oh, this girl who is a stripper and she gets impregnated through rape and she's got a brother and she's got to like work for him, but then, you know, this person dies, and I just like, I'm picturing all these scenes where she's really sad and like the light is trickling through a window on her face as yada yada yada. It's like we can't fathom billionaires' lives. Billionaires can't comprehend the lives of people in poverty. They can't comprehend the lives of people who are like everyday American, not even just those in poverty, those who are middle class. Like there's just no comparison to that. It's a similar issue with Sam Levinson in Euphoria. Yeah, so it ends up just seeming like cosplay. It ends up just seeming like the idea of it, and it doesn't feel fully authentic. Okay, so Lola Peltz Beckham is the writer, director, and star of the project, which was initially to be co-directed alongside the Florida Project actress Bria Venate before they parted ways, and is her debut as a writer and director. And it's also just like another nepotism type thing where, of course, Nicola was never not going to get to write and direct a film like this. Never. Even though there are a lot of stories out there that are better than this, that would be written and directed by filmmakers who are just more talented than Nicola, who would be able to tell a story like this better. Because Nicola is a billionaire, because she's always had that going for her in her life, like it was never a question of whether or not she would get to do something like this. Just like Maude Apatow, whatever. Maud Apatow, Judd Apatow's daughter. She just started a production company. She's going to be writing and directing her feature debut because she has the resources, she has the connections. She was born into that world. She gets to do whatever she wants. So there's kind of just an irony in that Nicola Peltz gets to tell this story because she's a billionaire, because she has access to anything that she wants in this world. So Peltz Beckham, now 29, wrote the script when she was 23 years old in a 3-day straight stretch. I did not sleep for 3 days. I have screenshots of 4:50 a.m. just me writing. When I started putting my thoughts down, they just wouldn't stop. She wrote in chronological order without an outline or a sense of what the ending might be, which she says avoided putting pressure on myself. Writing to me was always something private, Peltz Beckham says. It was just a love that I had that I was never planning on sharing, or at least not then. Yeah, same like her husband, who's a photographer. These two really just, nothing's gonna stop them. Why couldn't she give us a sick movie about the life of a rich person? Yeah, I would like, give us a Gossip Girl, man. Her acting coach was the first person to see the script, which at that time was one continuous sentence. One sentence. And encouraged her to turn it into a proper draft. Many of the secondary characters in the script are based on people in her life. The best friend in the film is inspired by Peltz Beckham's childhood best friend, Angela. So you're telling me that a girl who's been a billionaire since she was born based characters in a script about people living in poverty off of the people in her life who presumably were in the same social circles as her. You don't grow up in New York as a socialite, as the child of a billionaire, and not be spending time around other billionaires, other very wealthy, connected people. So, how can you write a story basing characters off of those people who are supposed to be living totally opposite lives? Yeah, the millionaires were brokies. The little brother in the movie is based on her godson. Lola herself obviously is quite a different life from the writer, who grew up in New York and is the daughter of billionaire Nelson Peltz. I just felt like I read a lot of scripts and I wanted to play a resilient, strong girl, but I didn't want the star of the film to always be right. Okay, this is your indicator right here. The reason why I said that her movie feels like somebody who has watched and read scripts and watched movies of other characters and stories like this, like slice of life, you know, somebody who's down on their luck, living in poverty, trying to make a better life for themselves, is because that's the only way that she would know anything about that world. So of course her movie is going to just take all of those things that she's seen in other movies, which is then what turns characters and plot lines into tropes. And it's like, oh boy, okay, here we go, I've seen this before. And that's because that's where she got all her ideas. I wanted to write a flawed character, but also someone where their heart's in the right place. I just think that's life, and imperfection in life will always inspire me. And I think that to have the story through her point of view was something that was always interesting, because when they say there's your story, his story, then the truth, I just think that's really true. I wanted it to be through her eyes. It doesn't mean that the audience will agree with every decision she's made, but you can understand why she's making the decision she is. There's an irony to be found in the daughter of a billionaire and daughter-in-law of one of the most famous celebrity couples on the planet writing and then casting herself in a story of a young woman struggling to make ends meet. And the film has drawn criticism since its release. It's nothing that Peltz Beckham isn't prepared for. The way I see it, I feel very connected to the characters I created. And like I said, my best friend and my godson, those came from my life, and a lot of connections and relationships came from my life. But of course, I did not grow up like Lola at all. And I wanted to write a story from a person's perspective and another point of view that was not my personal view and not my upbringing. I'm an actress, and my dream is to get to look at the world from different perspectives. Her goal with Lola was to make something that people connect to, and she says that at the film's premiere, she had several come up to her saying they were moved by Lola and her choices. That's all I could ever ask for. Okay, so this review here is going to have spoilers in it. If you had planned on seeing this movie, or you're like, you know what? I want to see this movie, I want to check it out, then mute or go away for like 5 minutes and then come back. But otherwise, I'm going to read through this because I need you to know what those perspectives are. I need you to understand what I'm talking about when I say this is not... Nicola Peltz was never going to be able to tell this story. I would like to see this movie despite the train wreck attached, and also accept the spoilers. Okay. All right. If you're fine with spoilers, then this is my warning here. If a nepo baby makes a laughably oblique film portraying what she must imagine to be the strife of the impoverished class, but hardly anyone watches it, will it hurt her career? That's sort of a trick question. Nicola Peltz Beckham, daughter of the Disney agitator investor and billionaire Nelson Peltz, and daughter-in-law of the power couple David and Victoria Beckham, dwells in a tax stratum so high that her career's successes and failures are almost irrelevant. Yeah, it doesn't matter to her. It doesn't matter if this movie does well or not. She'll be totally fine. Most learned her name when her father filed a lawsuit against two of her former wedding planners over a $159,000 deposit. a relatively small amount in comparison with the reported $3.8 million bill for her nuptials to Brooklyn Beckham. She's acted in a handful of television shows and movies since she was 11, but Lolo marks her writing and directorial debut and her first leading role. I actually didn't know that. Peltz Beckham described the project, which she's been working on for 6 years, as a slice of life film. On the whole, Lola is a bad movie. Peltz Beckham plays Lola James, a 19-year-old who splits her time working at a drugstore with her best friend, Babina, and a strip club, where she's naive, though intrigued by what goes down in the back room. Her tense home life in middle America is dominated by her alcoholic mother, Mona, who cruelly ridicules her younger genderqueer sibling, Arlo. The child is referred to with he/him pronouns in the movie, and whose affinity for painted nails and makeup is at odds with Mona's God-fearing Christian values. I just can't get over, too, that the world that Nicola has grown up in, one that has been created for her by her father, is one where genderqueer people in this country are having their rights taken away because of funding by people like Nelson Peltz, because of politicians like Ron DeSantis, who's good buddies with Nelson Peltz, because of asshole billionaires like Elon Musk, who's very good friends with the Peltz family. So there's a fucking weirdness here, an absolute weirdness for Nicola Peltz to like have her film revolve around a genderqueer kid whose sister is a stripper and is like and whose mother is a bigot and is trying to make money stripping to provide her genderqueer brother with a better life. Like, it just seems to me as if Nicola just like literally looked at someone's tweet and was like, "Ooh, this will be interesting for my movie." And meanwhile, it's like, your father is awful. The people whose company your family keeps are terrible. They are why there is so much hatred towards queer people in this country right now. Anyway, okay. Lola aspires to send Arlo to art camp in Dallas, which vaguely motivates her to make more money, including servicing creepy customers in the strip club's back room. Right, like, I haven't seen the movie. Again, I have read like every critic's review and they've all said it's a terrible movie. So to me, it's like, are you actually exploring anything interesting and worthwhile with having a genderqueer sibling, or do they simply serve as a motivation and a plot point? Is it simply that like you needed drama, you needed something for your lead character to, like, what's the inciting incident? Okay, what's their motivation? And so, oh, we have this queer sibling, great, who's being abused by the mother. After taking refuge at Babina's house to escape Mona's wrath, Lola stops back home to pick up the pet bulldog, only to be raped by Mona's boyfriend, Trick. Okay, so her mom's boyfriend has raped her. A few days later, Mona makes Arlo cut his long blonde hair, causing him to run away through the streets. He's hit by a car and killed. Okay, so we have everything. We have poverty, we have stripping, we have queer character, we've got a death, hit you in the feels, we've got rape, we've got pregnancy, we've got drugs. Okay, are you guys like catching on that this is poor America? Arlo is hit by a car and killed. This perhaps causes Lola to start abusing nose drugs that she buys from Malachi. So again, to me, it seems like the genderqueer sibling only exists to move main character Lola from here to here to here, and is behind everything that she does. Okay. So she buys from Malachi a pockmarked ex-boyfriend with fluffy hair, eager to win her back after cheating on her. So here's a photo of Nelson Peltz, her father, Elon Musk, and then her brother Will Peltz, who's in the movie, at the premiere of Lola. I'm just dying imagining these two fuckers watching this movie. I am absolutely dying imagining Nelson Peltz and Elon Musk watching a movie like Lola. I write vaguely and perhaps because the plot points hardly feel inciting or interconnected, but rather like trauma bulbs spaced out neatly on a string of lights. Yeah, that's a better way. It's what I was trying to say, but a better way of saying it. Unwilling sex work, scraping by at minimum wage, being abused, losing a sibling violently, abusing drugs. All the bulbs are turned on at once, blinding the moviegoer. Also, Lola gets pregnant from the rape. You know what would have been interesting? How about if the movie had explored that she can't get an abortion because of right-wing politicians like Ron DeSantis, because of billionaire donors like Nelson Peltz? Wouldn't that have been interesting? Wouldn't it have been interesting for the daughter of a billionaire who grew up in this world to make a film that commented on that? The movie ends with Mona blaming Lola for Arlo's death, and Lola keeping the baby that Trick impregnated her with and raising it with Malachi. In the interim, she gets sober through a Narcotics Anonymous group. Her brother plays a fellow member who seemingly flirts with her after a meeting, confronts her terrible mother, and declares in a concluding narration that this has been a story about generational trauma. Oh no. Lola doesn't even deserve the hate watch indulgence that Madame Web received. Filled to the brim with underbaked, oftentimes harmful tropes, the supportive black best friend, a queer child meeting an unceremonious death, the virginal stripper saved by motherhood, a hypocritical Christian drunk, the film leaves one wondering what could have been achieved if any of those characters or their storylines were given as much attention as the gaffers paid to the light hitting Peltz Beckham's cheekbones. That's such a fucking good line. And also, like, yeah, it's very clear that so much of this movie was like, but does she still look pretty?
You're really firing me? Come on now.
That's petty, Bert. Petty as fuck. I look so beautiful.
That's insane.
Like, make sure the light hits on her cheekbones, please. On those gorgeously sculpted cheekbones. The makeup is always a slay. That is true. Save for a handful of Letterboxd and Google reviews and a WWD interview, very few people have called her egregious leverage of the aesthetics of poverty, as well as sex work and queer suffering, to serve her creative reputation. Oh, sorry. Very few people have called it out. The majority of the press surrounding Lola handles the 29-year-old with kid gloves. You should be so proud of yourself, an interviewer at The Hollywood Reporter offered. Kelly Clarkson softballed her questions about how fun it must have been to bring her mom and husband on set. Vogue's coverage of the Lola premiere glossed over the contents of the film and celebrated instead what Peltz Beckham wore, Victoria Beckham's designs, and how the after party was decorated, like a strip club. So, again, it is very ironic that Nicola Peltz made a film about a girl who has had every hardship in life. Truly. It's like an abundance of being fucked over and so much shit having to overcome that. And yet this is a person who is not going to be reviewed in the way that someone of her status, someone of her wealth, someone of her connections would be. And it also will have no effect on whether or not she gets to make a movie again. No, it doesn't matter. That's the thing. It doesn't matter if her movie sucks. It doesn't matter if Maude Apatow's movie sucks. No, they're totally fine. They can just keep doing whatever daddy's money and connections can buy. That's exactly what it is. Lola 2 is coming up. Peltz Beckham did achieve something with Lola. It's called poverty porn, and in film, that means the exploitation of the conditions of poverty for entertainment and artistic recognition. Yep. I'm sure that she thought that this was going to be critically acclaimed simply for the fact of its subject material, where it's like, okay, here's a woman who's been raped by her mom's boyfriend, who's impregnated, whose brother is queer, whose mom is an alcoholic and abusive, who herself has to work at a strip club and service creepy, abusive men, who wants nothing but to get her brother out of this world. And yet he dies. He gets hit by a car and she blames herself. And so does the mom. Oh my God. Tears, drama, conflict. Yeah, awards. But you know what? She cleans up her act. She goes to Alcoholics Anonymous. She forgives herself for her brother. She has the baby. She confronts her mother. She has her character arc. It was all a dream. Okay, let me finish this. It's been a while since I watched this, so I'm not standing up for it until I rewatch it, but there's some errors to Wells speaking out against it. Johnson & Johnson Air makes film on income gap. I remember this. Yep. Let me go back to this. Ideally, a sincere desire to humanize those living on the margins, to make a character's appeal transcend the fact that they are poor, and all the lazy stereotypes associated with that helps avoid exploitation. Sean Baker's vibrant film, The Florida Project, which I was showing you earlier, was most successful at that exploration. You should always also see Tangerine if you're a fan of The Florida Project. Then there are films that romanticize notions of class struggle, like the 2021 Oscar winner Nomadland, which contained a scene of an Amazon warehouse lunch break that was so chummy and uncritical of the pitfalls of gig labor that you wonder if Amazon had a financial interest in the movie. It didn't, but it did allow the movie to film in its warehouses. Hillbilly Elegy, the memoir by J.D. Vance turned Netflix movie, earned itself a more cynical watch after Vance won Ohio's Senate seat on policies that hurt the population he profited from writing about. Still, these examples manage to explore nuance in the realities of living without means in this country, whereas Peltz Beckham cosplays a disadvantaged darling, dressed up in despair drag in a film whose message about hardship could be summed up as pout your way out of poverty. What makes Lola such a flagrant example of poverty porn is just how careless the project feels in the context of her exceptionally lavish life. That lifestyle was on full display on the Lola red carpet. She and her co-star and brother Will shared a photo on Instagram of them with their father Nelson and Elon Musk. The nearly $200 billion net worth pictured, an almost unfathomable amount of money, felt like a mockery of the film's themes. Further, Musk, who has an estranged trans daughter, joked that he was there with friends thinking about companies to acquire, implying that the premiere itself served as a great place for the rich to get richer. It's also worth noting that Nelson has donated to political candidates, Tim Scott, Ted Cruz, Donald Trump, who have supported and authored legislation and campaigned on values endangering trans and gender nonconforming youth. Yup, children who are no different from Lola's young Arlo. While I'm hesitant to ascribe the sins of anyone's father to them, Peltz Beckham not only looped her father into promoting the film, but is aware of the reputation and company that he keeps. In one of the text messages made public in her father's wedding planning lawsuit, she demanded, "DeSantis must be off the guest list, please confirm." If anyone is looking for a sign of Peltz Beckham's respect for the characters she's written, they won't find it in the photos of her cozying up to Musk and Dad. While doing press for Lola, Peltz Beckham said she wanted to write a story from a person's... I already read that. Sorry, I'm starting to lose... My voice is really going, so I can't read much more of this. That's fair. Telling stories about the impoverished class shouldn't be off limits to anyone with enough money to make a movie. Nepotism isn't inherently evil, nor should billionaire heiresses be barred from creative work. Case in point, Julia Louis-Dreyfus. Nevertheless, it is remarkable to witness all that money can buy, a talented cinematographer, Quincy Jones as a music director, put to work within a world dictated by such thin scripting and careless caricatures. What all that money can buy includes gratuitous shots of Peltz Beckham as Lola, her mouth slightly agape like a fashion model, and makeup done impeccably, exaggerated enough to let us know that she's lower class, but not so much that it denies her beauty. She stares blankly into the distance at the strip club or while hugging a toilet after doing drugs at work, or sitting in a back parking lot next to a discarded toy pony. It can't be overemphasized how often we watch her sitting and staring in this movie. I'm telling you guys, I haven't read this review yet. I had not watched the movie. Did I not say though how that's exactly what this movie would be, where she's just like all these shots of Nicola Beckham looking beautiful and forlorn and #poor. Lola is visually mesmerizing. It also doesn't add up to much more than a glorified commercial for Peltz Beckham. A movie like Lola isn't going to help build a respected career, though I'm not sure what Peltz Beckham is after. She enjoyed a congratulatory press tour. She looks glamorous in a wife beater. Her finances won't suffer, and I'm willing to bet she'll always be in a monetary position to fund her next vanity project. What's ultimately shameful is that she can wipe off her working class smoky eye and go about her life, while the people whose perspective she wanted to dip into for a story won't enjoy any of those luxuries. Yeah, and the thing is that when a filmmaker does not have real empathy and understanding for people who they might not be a part of that world, they might not live that life, but they genuinely like are exploring that world and who those people are, and have a curiosity and an understanding and a desire to tell stories of these people's lives. You can tell that. You can tell that in the filmmaking. If someone is simply looking at that as like, ooh, this will be good drama. This will like have people in tears. This will get people in the feels. That's going to come across as well. Which is exactly what Lola seems like.